Well, hello again. Welcome back. I want to start out by saying, the response to my last video caught me off guard. I did not expect everyone to basically have the same feelings about the crap I mentioned that I did. I figured I was the only one who had his fill of the junk, So I appreciate everybody telling me that I'm not alone in that respect. I appreciate everyone telling me that they're learning from the videos I put up. That's always good, That's always good to hear because, sometimes you get somebody every single time, so, thanks for the video, that sort of thing. You don't know if they're really, just sort of doing it out of, well, I've been doing it for so long, I just got to keep doing it and that sort of thing. I understand some people lose interest in things, I'm a human, everybody does. I appreciate all the good talk, all the good comments, just everything you did. Thanks a lot, guys. Keeps me going here, Well, guess what? Today we're going to have a teaching moment. I don't do teaching moments on my videos very often, but this time we're going to have a teaching moment, but I'm still not going to do a teaching moment. It's going to be a Brendan, my mentor, a Brendan teaching moment. And that's something else that caught me off guard, what you're going to learn here today. This amplifier uses a 5U4 rectifier tube. Let me get on down there so you can see it. I'm kind of standing here, so I may have to get up and down from time to time to get closer, but it uses a 5U4GB. Okay, now this rectifier takes the voltage off the cathode. This is a filament cathode combined. It takes the voltage off there. The pulsating DC is what this thing it converts AC to pulsating DC and sends it on down the line. Well, Brendan said, hey, look, John, you put a 100 microfarad input capacitor in that chassis, which was right here. It called for a 90. It originally was an 80. I put in a 100, all rated at 500 volts. And he said, according to the manual, you're not supposed to have more than 10 microfarads off that cathode unless you put some sort of resistance between the cathode and the filter cap. Otherwise, it causes the tube to just flat burn out. Because look, a capacitor in the power supply in particular, when you fire up your radio, you fire up a jukebox, you fire up anything, the first capacitor is called the input capacitor. Remember that. Now, this is a good thing to remember. An input capacitor. And it's empty. And it's empty. So the tube sees this as a dead short when it starts, producing, when it starts conducting. So it's going to be really firing a whole lot of electrons through there when it's a dead short to try to fill that thing up. And then as it gradually fills, it gradually fills. Now, of course, this is all done very quickly, but as it gradually fills, the current flow slows down and slows down. So what's needed when you have a requirement on a tube that's being exceeded by the design of the engineers. In this case, originally they called for 90 microfarads. Well, then they settled, I guess, for 80, and then I come by years later and stick a 100 in there. We're really overloading this poor little tube right here by over 2 times, okay? So Brendan said, that's why they put this choke in here, According to the tube manual, which I have right here, I have an RCA tube manual. It says you have to put an impedance or resistance of the correct value or high enough value that will slow the output here enough to where it, will fill this input capacitor a little slower. If it fills it a little bit slower, it won't overdrive the tube and burn it out. So that's why the choke is there, that L101. I'll show you the choke again. That is the choke right there. Now I took my little old tester here. Let me get it. I took my little old tester. It only has 2 wires coming out of it. One in and one out. Okay, and they solder underneath. Easy to follow, easy to find. Choke has 1 wire in, 1 wire out. Let me show you on the schematic for those who just kind of tuning in on this sort of thing. Choke has 1 wire in. Come on. 1 wire in here. Get a little focus here. It has 1 wire in there. 1 wire out there. It goes in, coils around, 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 comes out. That's it. In and out. So you stick your tester one on one wire and one on the other wire underneath, and you do a reading of it. Now that's what I did. I tested it with the little tester here, and here's what I got. I had a DC ohms reading of 48.6 ohms, and I had it has 8,280 microhenries of inductance. Okay, 8,280 millihenries. I'm sorry, not micro, millihenries. And then I had 48.6 DC ohms. So the question is, will this be enough with me using a 100 microfarad capacitor? Will this be enough to slow that current down to where it won't continually fry out our poor little tube? Well, Brendan says he thinks it'll do it. He says he thinks the resistance is big enough, but you know, it's one of those things you have to kind of keep an eye on. When we turn it on, we need to watch the tube. Where's that tube at? I think it's this one right here. Let me look here. I can't even figure out. Yeah, this is it. This is where it'll be. We'll have to keep an eye on this thing when we turn this jukebox on the first couple of times. If we see any arcing going on in the tube, that means that this choke is not big enough, and we're going to have to come back and do something with it. Now that, my friends, is from our good mentor and friend Brendan up in Michigan. And you know, he said, you know, normally in a bar or a restaurant or something like that, they don't turn these things on, off, on, off, on, off. They would turn them on and leave them on. They would stay on for days, weeks at a time, until they finally crapped out and they had to call the maintenance guy. But I'm not going to be doing that. I'll be going on and off and on and off. It's going to put a pretty big strain on this little choke. But I won't be doing it on off continually. You know, I'm not going to be, I just can't afford to leave it plugged in all the time. It's old electronics. I do not trust it. You should never, ever trust old electronics. Never leave your house with your old tube radio plugged in, your turntable plugged in that's old tube, anything like this that's tube. Unplug it if you're going to leave your house. Otherwise, you'll liable to come back and find the entire thing in cinders. Anyway, that's your teaching moment of the day. I hope all of that made sense. If not, ask questions. Now, one more time, I want to go back to my previous video. The purpose of that video was not to keep people from asking questions. We want you to ask questions. Okay, that's all of us who do YouTube videos. We don't put these YouTube videos up there to show everybody how smart or how dumb we are. We already know all that. We're either smart or dumb or in between. If you have a question, bring it up. You know, we're not trying to cower anybody down or saying, "Oh, I'm not going to say anything to him," and get all upset. You know, that's not the case. I just don't want the same questions over and over and over when all you had to do is look at the video and get the answer. You know, so if you're out there and you're watching and you're a subscriber, continue to be part of the series. We want you here. Okay, we want you here. I'm going to tell you the flat out way it is with me. How many comments I get, how many subscribers I have, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I really don't pay a whole lot of attention to it. The reason being is, you know, I've seen rock stars who, you know, they stubbed their toe. They have 4 million views. You know, come on. Yeah, it basically is meaningless. The guys that come here and watch these things are the ones who are interested. They're the ones that want to know, or they're just really curious to see how the whole thing comes out. And along the way, they pick up a few things here and there, and that's cool. Okay, that's what it's all about, guys. Well, now that we've got that covered, let's go ahead and start out finally, at long last, with our Tormat Selector unit, that baby right there. There she be. I'm happy to report. Well, I'm unhappy and I am happy. I'm unhappy that none of these things have ever been changed. That means I'm going to have to go through and do them all. It would have been nice to have some nice brand new ones in there to give me a little more confidence in this thing actually playing. But, you know, at the same time, with all the old ones in there, maybe that means it did play and it didn't have to be messed with. So, I don't know. So, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. This is what she looks like, though. All original parts never been touched. Of course, all the old caps got to go. We got 6 or 7 of those. And the sockets have to be cleaned. Resistors tested. Not as much as what was in the amplifier. I believe I said that. And then we have our selenium rectifiers. This is a stacked selenium rectifier, one on top of another. Let me see if I can get in there. You see where's one's on top of another. There we go. We're going to be changing those, and that's basically it. Cleaning and putting in new components, you know, maybe a week and a half work, because I don't get a chance to do it every day like I would like to. Down here we have, this was a little bit confusing at first till I traced it all out. These two switches, if you look at the door over here, the back of the jukebox, you'll see we have a main switch on the top and a record reject directly below it. And you know, the operator or the user can have access to both of those. Well, this would be the main switch, and this would be the record reject right here, little button. The problem I see here is that this is a spring-loaded switch, and if you look over here, the main switch would be this one right here. It's S501. S501 that leads directly up to the fuse. Now I've traced out the wiring from this, and it does in fact go all the way up here to this fuse right there. Okay, right there. Kind of a jumbled mess in here, but it can be traced out. Anyway, the parts list says this is a single pole, single throw switch. It says nothing about spring loaded. I don't know. I don't know about that. And then of course this record reject button is this thing right here, S502. So we got 501, which is the main switch, S502, which is the reject switch, and then we have this mess here. Well, this is kind of interesting. Yeah, I've never seen, we have, it appeared at first that, well, we have two solenoids, of course, with the arms just sticking out, and it appeared that one was driving the other. Let me get my tweezers here, we can see a little better. One of these was driving the other. This one would go down. Nope, don't want to work that way. This one would go down, and then this one would go down. Seemed like they worked back. One was working the other. But what that is, I believe, now it's nowhere on the schematic that or nowhere in the description that I could see, but it appears to be this little setup right here in the dotted lines. You have a play control add solenoid, you have a play control subtract solenoid, and then a play control switch in the center. And they're all in this little deal here, and I'm certain that's what that is. And as soon as you turn on the old main switch, it fires up those solenoids right away. So that's what I'm pretty sure that is. And you know, we have some, you know, your typical contacts are there. I mean, we got contacts all over this thing that still need to be cleaned. Those there, and they're not stuck together or anything. You know, they seem to be okay, just a little dirty. So that's what we're looking at right there. Just a bunch of standard old stuff, standard old work. Clean, you know, replace, clean, replace, clean, replace. Hopefully I'll get it done as fast as I can, but as thoroughly as I can. I don't want to do any slipshod work at this stage of the game. I've told you a million times, the closer you get to the end, the more you slow down. If you don't, you will pay the price, guaranteed. And that could be anything from hooking up a wrong wire to punching a hole in a speaker cone or something. It's something you never really thought about. Let's see if we get to top off that transformer on the other side. We're not going to be able to get this top off. This is a potted transformer. The only way I'd be able to take that off is if it were bad and it checked bad, and I've already tested it. It has not checked bad, and at least it didn't check bad. I'm going to check it a second time just to make sure, but you can see all the potting in there, all that black tar goo. And I don't want to disconnect it underneath the chassis. This particular transformer, which would be almost unobtainium, I'd have to buy a whole new Tormat and hope that one worked. There's 19 wires. This thing has 19 wires coming out of it, out of this hole here and this hole here. We don't want to mess with that. No. I'm going to test it. If it tests good, about the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some air, I'm going to blow it all out in there, get a lot of the loose stuff that I see floating around there. Then we're just going to put the screws back in. We'll sand it down a little bit later, or you know, clean it up a little bit and paint the outside. Then we're going to call that one a day. So next time I'll have the results. I think I've already given the results one time in the past. I can't remember. We're up to at least 3 or 4 videos on this series. Anyway, we'll go ahead and test it a second time. Each of the windings. Here's the transformer right here. Okay, and by the way, that's the selenium rectifier we're going to change. We're going to change that with a full wave bridge rectifier. You're going to like that one. Anyway, We're gonna go. These are your 19 wires, and I'll have to test between each one, find out where they're at, and I'll get back with you and let you know if they're good. Okay? Let me see. One more thing to show you, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. I'll tell you what, before we get to that, some of you might want to know what I meant by blowing it out with air. Well, you can leave it tilted all the way down, or you can prop it open a little bit. It's open far enough for me right now. I'm just going to take this can of air. If you don't have air on your desk, on your workbench, you're missing something. This stuff comes in so handy. You know, it's expensive. I never thought, I think I mentioned once before, I never thought I'd buy air in a can, but pay money for it, but just go ahead and blow it all out, give it a good blowing. A lot of stuff comes out of it. Yeah, when you're done doing a little bit of soldering in the chassis, you've got little bits and drips and things like that here, little pieces of insulation, little pieces of that and that. This old air here, boy, just blows it all out. You don't want to leave that crap in the bottom of your chassis, whether it be a radio or whatever it is, doesn't matter. Blow it out, clean it out, okay? And let me go ahead and put the lid back on this, and I'll show you what I was going to do. Last but not least, on the schematic we have a pulse amplifier. It's got a dotted line all the way around it. And up here in the corner it says code A. Now, I don't know if the previous version had this pulse amplifier or not. This is code A. They may have taken the pulse amplifier, set it up differently than what it was previously and labeled it code A. But this looks like it's where the code A came from, the pulse amplifier. Well, here's our pulse amplifier. It's held. It says remove the screw from right here, which someone has already done. It's long gone, and it has a couple of clips, one on the front and one on the back, that you squeeze together to lift it up out of the chassis. It's just like you would find on a tube shield on, you know, some of the old Philco radios, you know, or whatever. You just squeeze it together like that, and then it'll lift right up out of the hole. Okay, they're just compression things. And one more thing, it has a couple more things. It has a 12AX7 tube that fits here, and an audio input here, and it unplugs. Why does it unplug? I'll tell you why it unplugs, because this is where the tube fits, and the wires run over to these pins, and that's how they get it to go down into the chassis. Yeah, pretty good idea, actually, passing it from one set of pins to another. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and we're going to tear this baby apart. Oh, I love to tear stuff apart. Watch old Brendan bite his fingernails down to nothing while I'm doing it. We'll rip it up. We'll find out what's in there. If we mess it up, we'll fix it, right? That's right. We always fix it. Don't worry about it. Okay, I think that's about it. Let me think, and I'll get back with you. Well, I guess about the only thing that's left is to just pose a question to some of our guys that have worked on these things. That main power switch on the bottom that sticks out, you know, through the hole on the back of the door, is that thing supposed to be spring mounted? I need somebody to tell me. Or is it just an up and down standard toggle switch? I don't know how they got a spring loaded one in there if that's the case. Why they would put it in there? It seems like when you release it, it would just shut off. I don't see any relay that locks in and holds it or nothing. Anyway, that's it for now. Until next time, this is John. I'll tell you what, we won't quit quite yet. You know, I haven't done a PS on a video for a while, so what I'm doing is, again, I'm taking some of this Evapor Rust with a paintbrush, and I'm just putting it on top. I'm just going to go down to this line right here. We'll do the other part later. I'll be coming out all day long, you know, making sure this is remaining wet. And I figure by the end of tonight, we should have quite a bit of that rust removed. All right. Incidentally, the last time I used Evapor Rust, I should have showed you this before. I don't know why I haven't. This is the money box. Remember the money box we had down in there? I de-rusted the whole thing. I just plunged it right down in that lunch bucket full of Evapor Rust and soaked it for 3 or 4 days. I just forgot about it. Left it in there, soak and soak. And it looks real good now. And the interesting thing was, even though it soaked and soaked and soaked, the tags survived, just like you see them. How about them apples, huh? I couldn't believe it. I taped it off and sprayed it, and she's good to go now. So anyway, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do the old Evapor Rust trick again. So hopefully it'll work. If it doesn't, well, that means we got lucky the first time, huh?